Good morning to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, online and TV 15 viewers, radio listeners via Tel TV Plus, St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, and respective radio stations island-wide. I'm Rolika Roach, and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, June 1st, 2022. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Public Health, Social Development, and Labor, Omar Otley, to address you. Minister Otley, you have the floor.
Good morning, Rolika, and thank you. Good morning to my honorable colleagues and members of the media, the viewing and listening public. I would like to start with some COVID statistics. Documented, we have 42 active cases. Unfortunately, we have 2 hospitalizations. We have noticed a decrease in the numbers on the dot side, but unfortunately an increase in the hospitalizations, as we were at 0 for the last couple of weeks. Fortunately, no one is critical, so that is a good sign. So hopefully, and we pray for their speedy recovery. We ask everyone to remain vigilant. As we saw recently, there is a slight spike on the French side, but as I often said, I don't like to separate the country. We have open borders, so if there's a slight spike over there, I consider it one St. Martin. So I ask everyone to remain vigilant, do your part, and stay healthy. Today marks the start of the hurricane season. I would like to stress on preparedness. Preparedness is not only boarding up, it's about stocking on food, having the correct essentials, batteries, whatever may be needed. I ask you, and I urge you to take the proper measures. Be your brother's keeper, look out for your neighbors, and let us prepare and pray for a safe hurricane season. With that, yesterday, I was honored to be at the Hurricane Preparedness Program. It was the final one. It took place in St. Peter's. This was done in collaboration, led by the Community Development, Family, Humanitarian Affairs Department, which I am so proud of. We had the CPOs, Community Police Officers, Insurance Company, Child Protective Services, in case of evacuation of kids after disasters. This was an extremely informative session. A lot of things were said that I myself did not know. I have asked for the presentations from each of the participants so that we can relay the information to the public throughout the upcoming hurricane season. I am also happy the Ministry of VSA, along with the Community Development, Family, Humanitarian Affairs, has started the home repair program where we would repair 9 homes of vulnerable persons. This is dear to my heart. It took a while, but I'm happy that it started, especially during the beginning of the hurricane season, so that we can help these persons feel more safe. I am also happy to announce that we are starting an anti-gang and positivity school tour. We look to start this as soon as possible. The first date is June 7th at the St. Dominic High School, where I myself, along with some other influential persons within the community, and also some ex-detainees, will give speeches to these students, tell them the importance of anti-gang activities, and promote positivity, especially to the seniors as they are about to leave and embark on their next step in life. We are working around the clock, the ministry, on flex security and the abuse of short-term contract. We have met day in and day out. We are collaborating with Curaçao and Aruba with their legislation changes to see the positive and negative effects it had on their country. With any action, there's a reaction. You have my full attention, St. Martin, as this been a cry for forever. The abuse of short-term contract. We are working on it diligently. We are also scheduled to sign the DCHA, Dutch Caribbean Hospital Alliance, in Aruba at the end of June. This is a collaborative effort between the 4 countries that will allow us to bid together collectively for items, allow us to be there to ensure the care continues throughout St. Martin, whether it's disaster, whatever it may be. We have each other, whether it's materials, specialists, doctors, whatever may be needed. This is another, I am extremely happy in the efforts and the teamwork of this CoM. This CoM exemplifies teamwork. We again have unclogged a major issue that have been blocked for years. This is another step towards SFA 3.0. It will save SFA millions and benefit the people. I will allow my good colleague, Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Duran, to elaborate more, as this effort was not possible without him. I would like to thank him and the Minister of Finance for their collaboration and willingness and vision to get this through. This is an example of true teamwork, as they will announce it later on. As the recruitment drive for the Royal Caribbean job opportunities will be held on June 28. I repeat, we will start the recruitment drive for the Royal Caribbean job opportunities on June 28. This will be facilitated by the RCG and the NESC. More information will be present shortly as for location and time. But we do want you to prepare yourself, prepare your resumes for June 28. The date is set. Also, I would like to announce on the TIAT aspect, the return of Copa Airlines. They'll be returning to St. Martin. This is a big news for us. We will continue to strive and promote St. Martin the best way we can. Despite headed into slow season, recent numbers showing we are currently at 82% this week of our 2019 numbers. This is actually great news for St. Martin. But what I look to do is surpass the 2019 numbers. The Ministry of TIAT, the priority right now is revenue, revenue, revenue. That is the main priority from the Ministry of TIAT, to collect what is out there, to create new streams of revenue so St. Martin can become more independent in its situation. I thank you and look forward to any questions.
Thank you, Minister Otley, for your opening remarks. I would like to inform the viewing and listening public, as well as members of the media, that Minister Otley will be leaving at 10:30. I would now like to invite the Honorable Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment, and Infrastructure, Egbert Duran, to address you. Minister Duran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Good morning, Prime Minister, colleague ministers, members of the media, and a special good morning to the people of St. Martin. Today I have the following updates. I recently returned from a working visit to Curacao, where I attended the Alide Association General Assembly. Myself, together with other regional leaders and representatives, which included the Curacao Prime Minister, Mr. Gilmar Pisas, and other ministers, attended the event upon the invitation of Corpodeco. Corpodeco is a development bank of Curacao, which was the host of this conference. ALIDE itself is the Association of the Development of Banks for Latin America and the Caribbean, with 85 members developing banks in 22 different countries. The event was organized to give international and Caribbean guests the opportunity to communicate, analyze key topics, and future opportunities post-COVID-19. The Assembly focused on 3 themes post-COVID-19. The economy of the Caribbean's perspective, namely, a panoramic picture of the global economy and the changes that are reshaping the world, digitalization of financial services and its future, and the timelines of investing in resilient, productive projects, and social affairs and infrastructure, and in the incorporation of the new technologies to boost the economic growth and development of intelligent, environmentally sustainable territories. The host of the event brought forward a wealth of valuable information in regards to the alternative investment and alternative financial instruments that can be brought in and used to achieve national goals within our own markets. Attendees were present with examples of alternative investments to enhance and develop certain sectors, and got the opportunity as well to share their experiences and unique challenges. The clear objective of the Assembly was to improve the lives of the people within the region and to welcome opportunities to strengthen the connection and networks within the Caribbean and across Latin American countries in terms of their development. During the conference, I also made use of the great networking opportunity with Minister Gilmar Pisas, also Minister of Economic Affairs, the Honorable Risandro Saincha, and Derek Jonas, who is the Executive Chief Executive Officer of Aqua Electra, which is to be compared to our GB. We also discussed different ways and means of which the two companies can collaborate, which used to happen in the past, and somehow the communication dropped. I must say that all parties are willing to work together, and I believe that as sister countries, we need to work together in order to achieve the common goals, which is in the best interest of our people. In regards to the mangroves, on Wednesday, May 25th, the Ministry of Rummy commenced with the project regarding the mangrove trees in the area of Prince Bernard Bridge. The overall objective of this project is to improve the traffic safety at the intersection that has been a hazard for some time now. So road users have complained for a lack of proper visibility in the area. Following an on-site assessment, it was decided that certain vegetation within 25 meters of all four corners of the bridge should be completely removed. As was decided prior to the commencement of the project, the clear areas will be replanted with young green buttonwood mangroves and native vegetation. Contrary to previous years, these new planted mangroves will be maintained on a regular basis in order to avoid the same thing from happening again. The main reason, again, is to ensure the line of sight and the traffic safety, at the same time creating an aesthetic view into the pond for enjoyment of recreation. The Ministry of Rummy would like to thank those that communicated their views and gave input in regards to this project. They were duly noted. I hereby also want to take the opportunity to encourage road users to continue to exercise vigilance and pay attention to all traffic signs in this area, as well as around the island. As it pertains to the bridge itself, it is important to note that the Ministry of Rummy will be hosting an information session on June 8, 2022, whereby contractors are invited to submit quotations for the project design and build repairs of the Prince Bernard Bridge. The submission of the quotations will be on June 29, 2022, which was also communicated in the media. My colleague, Minister Otley, mentioned about the SZV MOU. The government of St. Martin has signed an MOU to transfer 6,400 square meters of leased land in Cahill to the Social and Health Insurance SZV to commence with Phase 1 of the development of the Rowley Sports Complex area. Phase 1 includes the constructing of a new SZV office building, parking solution, and a community wellness building. I must say and reiterate, without the effort of my two colleagues, this would have not been possible. Also, the efforts of SZV. Minister of Finance will elucidate further from the financial aspect and the reasoning behind the MOU from that perspective. In regards to Leopard Road in Cahill, the roadworks are expected to begin next week in Cahill. The ministry is advising the general public and residents to exercise caution when work commences and pay attention to the road detour that will be taking place there. More information on this project will be published in the coming days to remind the general public. That is the road that where you have the Mental Health Foundation. Rescheduling of the government building demolishing tender. The Ministry of Rummy hereby informs the general public that the tender of the demolishing of the former government building has been rescheduled for June 15. That was published already in the media. I'm just reiterating so persons can be aware. I want to touch a bit on the building ordinance. As it pertains to building, in accordance with Article 7 of the building ordinance, it's prohibited to erect a building or partially renovate or have a building erected partially renovated as the owner without observing the regulations laid down pursuant to this regulation, without a building permit unless Article 10 or 5 of this regulation applies. Any deviation from provisions of a building permit are subject to further approval. Additionally, the Ministry of Rummy is authorized under Article 64 of the Building Ordinance to remove any illegal building construction or prevent any illegal building activity at the expense of the transgressor. The Ministry of Rummy expects and appreciates the cooperation of the general public in this regard and urges everyone to follow proper procedures so that we can avoid any inconvenience for all parties involved. Just to give a brief update on the job mixer, which was held a little over 2 weeks ago, the team has been going through all the applications, and by the end of this week, so by Friday, God's willing, everyone will receive an email in terms of their role based on their applications, whether you were fit or see fit for a different function. That will be communicated via email by Friday. The emails have already started to go out to persons. My colleague minister touched on the fact that today is the beginning of the hurricane season. I would like to urge residents as well to exercise caution, clean up your yards. As a ministry, we will be doing our cleanup as well, which is regular on a yearly basis with that respect. And I look forward to any cooperation. Also, if there are any issues that the general public feel needs to be addressed with regards to hurricane safety, they can also send an email to the Minvromi email, and we will see what we can do in that regard. We'd like to thank you for the opportunity, and that'll be all for now. Look forward to any questions.
Thank you, Minister Duran, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Finance, Otwell Edion, to address you. Minister Edion, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Good morning to you, the Prime Minister, my honorable colleagues, the media, and the viewing public. With concern, I took note of the service issues related to Republic Bank over the weekend. I myself also have an account there, so I was also very surprised to see the incident that took place. Obviously, I also got a lot of questions concerning this, and we related these questions and we had our concerns to the central bank, who is the official entrusted oversight over the financial sector. What I can mention is that a commercial bank must inform the central bank immediately when they are confronted with incidents such as what happened over the weekend. The central bank will review the specifics of the case. For example, they may ask more detailed information on the measures that are taken to remediate the incident. They could also provide instructions to take corrective actions. In addition to that, they can also or will want to ensure that all is done to ensure that it doesn't happen again. I know that this process has started already, so I look forward to having an update where possible from the central bank. In regards to what Minister Vesa, Omar Otley, and Mr. Vromi mentioned in regards to the SFV building, the transfer of the land of the SFV will enable further preparations for the construction plans for the new SFV building, which will also allow them to save money. Currently, they are paying a lot of rent in regards at their current location, and by constructing their own building, they plan to have a significant savings. What this means for government is that the idea is then to have a prepayment of long lease for a certain amount of years, which would then allow us to reduce the amount of OZR that we owe to them. So then this is one of the measures that this government has taken to be able to reduce our OZR debt. This is a process that started in 2019 when I was then Minister of Finance and also acting Minister of Education. And due to the pandemic, it was delayed, but I'm happy that with the current ministers that we were able to finalize this project or this assignment. In addition to that, SFV has still committed to the partially financing of the Olympic-sized swimming pool that will also be in that location. This was a request for many years now from our swimmers on the island, and SFV has continued to commit to that after the building has been constructed. The Ministry of Finance will also be hosting an art competition for local creatives. The concept will be able to design the final set of plates for St. Martin. As I've stated before, the ministries are working together to finalize the details of the new QR code system for the new road tax initiative. We cannot rush the process, so the final renewal of the plates, we are looking forward to be 2023. In addition to this, we've never had the public involved in the creation of plates, and so that's why we started this initiative. With that in mind, the ministry wants to include the citizens of St. Martin in both aspects of the process, creating as well as choosing the designs. The competition themed "A Lasting St. Martin" is open as of today and will be so until 5 o'clock, June 15th. Artists age 16 and up can provide submissions. The entries will be then posted on the ministry Facebook page for the public to vote for the most appealing design. The 3 pieces with the most likes will be judged. The winner will have their images become a part of the local iconography and will also receive the prize of 500 guilders. The announcement has already been made in the media, so those interested can visit the ministry social media for a list of the rules for the entry. We are also requesting that people make their digital submissions at minfin@stmartingov.org. Another point that the Minister of VESA brought up in his capacity of acting Minister of TIAT, and also mentioning that the collaborations we have as ministers is in regards to our backlog and revenue generating. That has been a theme that I have been pushing since I've been in this position of we have to not just create new revenue, but also deal with the backlogs that we have. One of those backlogs that the minister and I have set up a sort of a task force to deal with is the backlog when it comes to casinos and their outstanding backlog and debt. I must say that those discussions have gone well and that the relevant casinos are willing to pay, and we are finalizing this process as soon as possible. In addition to that, what the minister didn't mention is also the process of business licenses. I'm happy to see that the minister has taken this step and being able to speed up the business license process and also improve our customer service. The cost of doing business in St. Martin is just not about the price, but also the service level when it comes to doing business on the island. So I'm happy that the minister is also taking up that initiative to have this process not just go faster, but more efficient. In addition to that, we are looking at all the backlogs we have in government, and step by step, we are taking the right initiatives, forming the task force where necessary to be able to deal with these backlogs. That'll be all for today, Relika, and I look forward to the questions from the media.
Thank you, Minister Edion, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, Silvera Jacobs, to address you. Prime Minister Jacobs, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relika. Good morning to you. Good morning to my colleagues. Good morning to the press. Good morning to the people of St. Martin. I'd like to, first of all, mention that today, June 1st, is International Children's Day. And so I take the time to wish a happy International Children's Day to all the future men and women and leaders of our community, so all of the children, and that we promote international togetherness, awareness among our children worldwide to improve children's welfare. Also today at 12 p.m., the government will be opening its condolence book to the public in conjunction with the passing of our avid historian and senior civil servant, our community leader, Alfonso Blyden, who passed away last Friday. As of Thursday, tomorrow, the book will be available from 8:30 to 5 p.m. until June 6th. That is Monday, June 6th. So the public as well as civil servants can make use of this opportunity to put some words of condolences to the family that they can treasure the memories that we all have of our dearly departed. We extend, as Council of Ministers, condolences to his wife and 2 daughters, his close colleagues, and others within government, not just within the DIV department, which falls within General Affairs, but also throughout government, as he has been here for over 35 years and has played a key role in preserving our heritage. I trust that those who are following in his footsteps will continue to take his dream forward, his vision forward, and as government, we are wholeheartedly in support of any efforts to do so. We also extend condolences on the sudden passing of Mrs. Layla Manning. This past week has been quite heavy with the number of persons that have passed, as well as, in this case, the very horrific manner in which it took place. We also pay condolences to her husband, Judge Manning, and the entire family, St. Martin community. Her impact has had generational effect as the founder of Jack and Jill Play School, and many, many have been affected by her kind, warm, nurturing soul, and as such, we pray that her soul rests in peace, and that the people of St. Martin, literally, though we are enraged, though we are angry, not to act in anger, but to allow justice to take its course and trust that this will be resolved. However, as a community, the fact that such an act can take place, I think, must have all of us reflect on what we can do to make our society more equitable and more supportive of the disenfranchised, to ensure that these types of acts do not continue. There is a lot that needs to be done at all levels throughout community, NGOs, schools, churches, notwithstanding the family itself. and the necessary support to our youth who become disenfranchised, and government, of course. So together we can resolve a lot of our societal issues, but of course our current situation does not make it any easier. I'd like to remind the general public that along with the Ministry of General Affairs and the Ministry of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, so in collaboration with Women's Desk, I'll be hosting a panel discussion this Friday, June 3rd, under the theme Family at the Core of Society. It has been in the planning for quite a while. It was originally going to be a women's panel discussion in March, but due to time constraints, etc., and seeing that the time was falling between Mother's and Father's Day, and Family Day also fell within that period, we determined that it would be more not to focus on just one gender, but on the entire family. So I do look forward to the community taking part. The panelists are professionals as well as a family. A family will be there representing families. The youth will also be represented on the panel, and it will take place from 6 to 8:30 p.m. Persons who would like to reserve a spot, as you know, the government building, room 1 is quite small, are to contact jenny.hanley@stmartingov.org. It will be rebroadcast as it will be recorded. The Resembid project, Resilient Crisis Management Project, has been launched for St. Martin on May 16th. The government officially launched a momentous initiative to foster resilient crisis management, a project that will provide the island with a more adaptive mode of crisis response. It's an 18-month project funded by the European Union through the Regional Resembid program and is implemented in partnership with the International Cooperation Agency of the Association of the Netherlands Municipalities, VNGI. This multifaceted initiative is of a strategic significance for the implementation of our vision to build a more comprehensive disaster risk management. So it will include creating a network of certified trainers, developing the first crisis knowledge center by collecting and institutionalizing available knowledge and expertise. So that will create then a library, online courses, as well as in-person training, and enable the regional coordination mechanisms on disaster management, particularly during the among our Dutch OCTs. So I'd like to thank the EU and Resembid for the financial and technical assistance being provided to make us more sustainable and stronger as a country where disaster risk management is concerned. We have just started today our 2022 hurricane season. Forecasters have predicted that it will be an above average and active one. So please do heed all precautions to prepare as individuals, as families, as community, as businesses, schools, and the like. Do not become complacent. It only takes one to make it a bad season for us. So follow our www.stmartingov.org/hurricane for more information and to download your own hurricane season reading readiness guide, as well as hurricane tracking charts, and stay tuned to all other government platforms. There has been a lot of discussion about the conditions that I discussed the last time that I was in press briefing. I think I was one of the first, and in fact only, to come out as Prime Minister once the decision had been made what these conditions were, and mentioned that it's not just the three that were mentioned in the press. As a result thereof, all three countries did not agree with the handling of it in that Kingdom of Council of Ministers meeting, and as such, it has been postponed for 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks, the intention is for us to meet, discuss, and come to agreements. And that is the only reason why I have not further discussed the conditions. While you're in the process of negotiation, things will change and can change. So it did not behoove us as government to, at that time, once we'd started to renegotiate the discussion and have the discussions on the way forward, to come out until we have a resolution or not. So since we are still in the discussions with the State Secretary, I can mention that when she was here, I was able to have a private meeting with her on Ascension Day morning and breakfast and show her how culturally we celebrate our breakfasts. And in the following day, she met with several stakeholders in the evening and other entities. And on Friday morning, we held a meeting which was also divided in two. One part was with the unions of St. Martin. All the unions were represented. They were able to bring forth their concerns, and she was able to respond to them. And then we proceeded with a Council of Ministers meeting whereby we discussed our concerns with the conditions set to remove the condition of 12.5% that was put on the population in order for us to receive liquidity back in 2020. The State Secretary, as she mentioned in her press statements, is in agreement that it should be lifted. However, at the end of the day, there is a political agenda that she has to also adhere to. And so these were the conditions that they felt were necessary. The three countries are not in agreement with all of the conditions, and as such, we are still in deliberation to be able to see what can still be changed. There is no further clarity or no final decision on that. I did receive this morning an invite for a meeting next week to further discuss it again with all four of us, Curaçao, Aruba, St. Martin, and the Netherlands. But I have requested an earlier meeting before the end of this week to get further clarity so that we can proceed, because I do not believe that it is fair 2 or 3 days before the Kingdom Council of Ministers meeting to then have final discussions. So we had discussions when the State Secretary was here. Further update is that the technical teams are in Curaçao, having further deliberations on the responses to the reports of the parliaments on the CoHo itself. And so there is a lot going on at the same time. So do trust me that transparency will remain the key. And as soon as we have further clarity on what will be presented in the next Kingdom Council of Ministers, understanding that decisions of the Kingdom Council Ministers prior to handling have a level of confidentiality, there is no need and no will on the side of this government to hide anything from the people of St. Martin. But we've received some clarity to the points, and we would like to see it reflected in writing, and then we will proceed in terms of how we will deal with it or not. But suffice it to say that as government, as I mentioned in the press statement, and as the finance minister has mentioned also, we will continue, as we have had the discussions with the union, to move forward to make the necessary arrangements to compensate our civil servants in the month of June, so that they're able to meet the needs that they have not been able to over the past year, 2 years, when the condition came into play. So we found an interim solution, which we are executing, and in the meantime, continuing to deliberate with our Kingdom partners to ensure that we can see the removal of the conditions as soon as possible. Hoping to have clarified that to all concerns, and I look forward to any further questions related to this and any other matters in the subsequent section. Thank you, Rolika.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, for your opening remarks. If you have just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, June 1st, 2022. Thank you for joining us. We now move on to the question and answer session. I would now like to invite Bibi Hot Shah of SMA News. You have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika. My questions were supposed to be for the Minister of VSA and even the Minister of Justice, but I'll go to another minister. My question is for the Minister of VROMI. Minister Doran, can you tell us if there is an update on the investigation regarding the hacking at NVGEBE, and has the prosecutor's office or investigators in their report or meeting with you highlighted or explained exactly the status of this hack and what are some of the measures that will be taken, and if there will be measures taken against anyone at GB?
Good morning. Good morning again. Thank you, Bibi, for your question. I didn't have any meeting with the prosecutor's office regarding GB, so that did not take place. And no, I don't have any update in regards to any potential criminal, or any charges. That was never even brought to my attention. ever. I just heard it several times when you inquire about it, but that hasn't been brought to us or any sort of fashion. Not in writing, not verbally, or not anything.
Thank you, Minister Duran.
I don't, if that answers your question, hopefully.
Thank you, Minister Duran, and thank you, Bibi. I would now like to
Can
invite.
follow up on it. 'Cause
Can we just do the round and then I'll have us come back to it? Jacqueline Hoffman of the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Good morning, ministers. Thank you, Roleika. Prime Minister, this Friday, June 3rd, is the birthday of Lance Thomas. Next month is a year since he died in a police cell. His daughter and his son wanted to be known that he was a very kind man and a loving father. And the children and the sisters and other family of Lance, they want answers to their questions. One of the things that they've asked is the medical records of Lance, which was denied by MHF. MHF states that the medical records, only the patients have rights to medical records, and once they're, after their death, the medical records stay with the institution. Also, the families of Carlette Julien and Mrs. Roberts, whose 29-year-old son died after he received injections from a nurse from MHF, want access to their loved ones' medical records. So my question is it a general rule that if somebody dies, and in this case of unnatural causes, that the family has no right to access to the medical records?
Ms. Hoffman, the question you're asking me is definitely not public knowledge, nor is it something that comes to the floor of the Council of Ministers that I would be privy to such. You're talking about persons who passed away under circumstances. I believe the last update I heard was that they were under investigation via whether it's the Minister of Justice or the Minister of VSR, who has the purview of mental health. And so I will follow up and see that those answers are sent in writing as much as possible.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Ralph Cantav of Phillipsburg Broadcasting, you have the floor.
Thank you. I have a question for the Minister of Finance. So my question is, just for clarity, because I'm not sure if maybe this was provided previously. However, how much money has government saved from implementing the 12.5% cut? So did it lead to any actual increase in government coffers? And just a brief follow-up on one of your statements about the Republic Bank. Did the bank alert the central bank immediately during the difficulty they face, as they should have done? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I could provide that specific number in writing. But yes, we did save money because of the conditions, because we didn't have to pay out vacation pay. And the first year we did vacation pay and indexating and so forth. So we did save money. In regards to how quickly the bank responds to central bank, that information I don't have, but they were supposed to do that as soon as possible.
Thank you, Minister Edion. Lyndon Brown of BCN TV, you have the floor.
Good morning to the people of St. Martin and the ministers that are present here today. Question to the Minister of Romy, and it can segue to the Prime Minister. It's a great day for GEB ministers, as GBE did not give in to the hackers' demand of millions. But, Minister, do you have any idea how much thousand, a million did it cost to recreate GB data?
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your question. At this point, we do not have a full, complete financial picture of the costs thus far, because it's still ongoing in terms of the restoration. GB is to open on Monday. We also sent questions to the respective government-owned company to receive a sort of a financial impact study in terms of how much money it the company could have or maybe potentially lost thus far in terms of being closed. That is yet to be determined because as they open, and then is when the cash flow starts to come in. So it's kind of difficult to project in advance. But with respect to the question on how much was paid thus far, we do not have those exact figures, nor do I want to guess or speculate. But those questions were posed to GB, and we are waiting on the finalization in order to give a clear picture as to where we're at based on that situation and the finances. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Duran. I would now like to invite Andrew Dick of TV Carib. You have the floor.
Thank you, Roleka. Good morning to the ministers. Minister of Romy. Minister, regarding the reported demolition order for a vendor on the airport road, the alleged said that he had all the paperwork and is still being demolished. Can you clarify and perhaps indicate if he indeed had his building permit? And if yes, why would he be ordered for demolition?
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew, for the question. Normally, I really don't like to comment on personal cases. However, this has been something that has been blown up in the media, and I believe that the general public deserves some clarity to a certain extent. So I would like to say the following. I'll start off by saying that the Ministry of Romy has rules and laws that we are guided by and we follow. We are definitely not in the business of halting progress for anyone. For the general population to further understand our basic process, I will briefly touch on a bit of the laws that I mentioned earlier. Based on Article 7 of the Building Ordinance, a building permit is required to build a structure. If someone is building without proper documentation, the inspection department will start off by issuing them a warning. The opportunity is given for the person to apply for a building permit. Then it's followed by a stop and removal order if the person does not comply or does not apply for a building permit. The opportunity is given again for them to apply after the stop and removal order. If this is not complied with within the required time frame, the government proceeds to schedule a removal at the owner's expense. All requests to build are via appointment only. If the outcome of the appointment is not satisfactory, which is very rare, you can contact the ministry directly via our various emails or staff within the ministry, within the Department of Permits. The ministry currently has 14 enforcement actions that have been scheduled for removal at the owner's expense. The ministry strives to uphold the law and is aware of numerous cases around the island of illegal building activity, which is being handled by the respective staff. Ownership of property, I would like to elaborate, and Relika, thank you for your indulgence. Ownership of property, whether private or rental agreement or long lease or parcel of land, including a business license, does not exempt anyone in St. Martin from needing an approved building permit to develop a structure. In essence, as long as we all have our relevant documentation in place, there will not have any situations of enforcement that must take place. Even though we find it unfortunate that the ministry has to execute removal orders because it's not in anyone's best interest, rules are rules and regulations have to be upheld. Now, I walked with a few points. In June of 2021, the client was contacted via phone and email about the placement of an illegal container. A complaint came in from the Ministry of TIAT on June 17th about the placement of the container along the road. On the 18th of June last year, the inspection department noticed that an inspection was taking place and issued a warning letter at that time. Fast forward, different communications in terms of telling the respective individual to apply for a permit. On April 30th, a stop order was made and the client refused to pick it up. They were also contacted via phone and requested to come in for a meeting. On May 9th, due to non-compliance, a removal order was placed on the container. On May 13th, a site visit with police officers and the contractor was warned and told to stop working, also to remove. And on May 27th, the inspection department also returned with police again, indicating that there was no proper building permit, not even a request was submitted. I also quadruple verified with the permits department, and this was the response that I received. This email is meant to inform you the permits department did not receive a building permit for said structure. Kind regards. I want to say for the record that I stand and support my staff fully in executing their tasks. It's very rare that we have removal orders. However, no one is above the law, not me, not you, not anyone in this room, and not anyone in St. Martin. And I respect the decision of the staff, and I stand by it and I support it. And in cases when we can make adjustments and work, we do it all the time. I just gave a brief explanation of a year going on situation where this situation has been ongoing with non-compliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Duran. We now move on to the second round. Bibi Hatshaw, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. My follow-up to Minister Doran. Minister Doran, earlier when GEBE was hacked, I can remember in this press conference room, it was stated that a complaint was filed with the prosecutor's office about the hack. That is the investigation I'm talking about. Whether criminal or not, I'm asking if there was an update as per the investigation and the hacking. Then my second question, I'll ask the Minister of Finance. Minister, after the 12.5% cut that was demanded by the Dutch in 2020, we know St. Martin did not cut salaries. Other things are wrong. Salaries was cut, such as vacation pay. Can you tell us if the civil servants will receive their full vacation allowance this year? And considering the cuts and the measures that the Dutch now want to impose to remove the 12.5, have you considered what it will be, what the effects will be if you have to apply the other cuts as recommended by the CFT? For example, the 40 million on goods and services.
Minister Duran?
Thank you, Bibi, for the follow-up. I would just like to ask you to clarify one thing. You mentioned that it was mentioned on the floor in the press briefing. Was it mentioned by my person or no? I never mentioned that anything about the prosecutor. I think we're mistaken. And if so, I'll look into it. If you could just maybe give me the question in writing clearly, and then I'll respond accordingly. All right? Thanks.
Ms. Shaw, I don't know if you've confused statements made here in times when the minister was not present. I mentioned that the national security was in contact with GEBE or with the police, which naturally, if something like this happens, they would contact the company. So I don't believe anything was said about the prosecutor's office. It was a discussion between the police department and the national detectives, not the national detectives, National Security, VDSM, they had discussions, and GEBE and the police, but not necessarily that it was the prosecutor's office. So when there is a hack, there's a discussion and an investigation has to take place. And as government, we've also requested that an investigation takes place.
Yes, in regards to Michelle's question, it was a few. So you might have to repeat one or two because we had a couple answers before me. In regards to the payment this month, yes, the expectation is to pay out the 6%. That would then be equivalent to 6% vacation pay, yes. And then your other question was in regards to the 40 million that CFT had discussed in regards to the 2022 budget amendment. Actually, it was 50 million that he had requested, not 40. And we have since then in the amendment brought it down to 30. And that's the amendment that we submitted, a 30 million gila cut to the operational cost, yes.
Thank you, Minister
So what I'm asking, what are the effects? What the effects would be? Have you looked into that?
What the effects would be if we... No, like I mentioned before, it was 50 million. We have had since then discussions, and we have submitted a 30 million gila cut. So if we submitted a cut, then we would then know where the cuts were made. I can't speak for every ministry and where exactly the cuts were made to say what the effects would be. The effects would mean that we would not be able to execute certain things maybe that they wanted to. But in addition to that, there were certain things, for example, that were cut that were budgeted for, but because of the current situation, the pandemic, were no longer necessary. I'm not going to go into within health and so forth. So there were budgets created for the budget, preparing for a longer pandemic, and the situation we are currently in has now changed. So then we were able to cut in those areas also. So yes, we made certain cuts, and that's another reason why the minister also mentioned revenue generating. I don't just believe in making cuts and cuts and cuts, because that would then lead to a stagnation in progress or works for government. I believe in, one, creating new revenues, and two, dealing with the neglected backlog, again, that has been neglected for at least the last 10 years or more. So within the last 3 years, within our term, for us to deal with all the backlogs would be a great achievement.
Thank you, Minister Edion. Jacqueline, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika. Minister Doran, with regards to the announcements of pruning, I would like to ask you, last year, April 26, you reinstated Article 28A of the National Ordinance for Spatial Planning, requiring a civil works permit in case people take down trees or clear land or other works. And the request would then be published in the National Gazette with the public 6 weeks to protest. Does that Article 28A also apply to the government, or is the government exempt from that?
That's a very good question. I will have to double check with my legal in regards to this specific case with the pruning of the mangroves. However, government is not exempt from that article, because you can use, for instance, with the post office and also the demolition of the former Soromar building that is under the Ministry of Justice, which was done over these last couple of months. They did require a civil works permit. It was applied for, and it was also granted. So I'll double check in this specific case with the pruning if this is indeed the case. So if you can submit it and send me an email, I will respond accordingly with the specific question. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Duran. Ralph, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Question again for the Minister of Finance, and probably the Prime Minister as well. And my question is, given that one of at least the 8 conditions that we were made aware of to remove the 12.5% cut for civil servants is to maintain the 25% cut for ministers and MPs. The government will now have to prove to the CFT that the 8 conditions are met before the Kingdom Council of Ministers agree on the removal of the 12.5. So is it possible that you can explain to us exactly how was the cut, the 25% cut done, which was mandated by law? So like what made up 25% cut on ministers or MPs? And just as a very brief follow-up on your statement about the casinos, if you can't provide it now, if possible in writing, can you also share with us what is the backlog like as it relates to the casino fees and the debts that they owe government, and how long haven't they been paying their due amount?
Yes, in regards to the casinos in the backlog, how long have they been paid? I know that when I started to work for government in 2014, there was already a backlog then. So I could only assume the backlog existed even before that. I'll try and confirm, but the last estimate, I believe, was almost for the last decade. So I could confirm, but I could say for sure, it started when I came in 2014 in Ministry of TIAT, there was already a backlog. And your other question in regards to the amount, I believe? The backlog and casino fees is a couple million, so I think the last estimate a little above 7 million. So I have to confirm. So it's also the casino fees and controller fees. So it's 2 different amounts. So we have to confirm those amounts, and that's what I was mentioned earlier with the minister. The task force that we have basically with the Ministry of TIAT is to basically identify the amount, finalize the amount, so that we can have these discussions finalized as soon as possible. The good thing is that the casinos are working with us, and they also want to finalize this process. With response to the breakdown 25%, I don't have the calculation out of my head. It is part of the law though, so the breakdown is in the law and how it's done. I don't know from the top of my head, but it's different aspects. So, for example, I know one part that was gone is the the toelage for vehicle toelage, vehicle allowance, and some other allowances and so forth. And vacation pay.
Thank you, Minister Edion. Lyndon, you have the floor.
Question to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, I find sometimes it is unfortunate that a lot of the time you are being blamed. Minister, can you be explicit? The CFT, the CoHo are Dutch Financial Higher Supervision, I can say. Okay, but a lot of the time, Minister, the condition that the Dutch give to the ministers at Parliament, is not your fault, Minister. Can you change it? Because I find it's strange that everything is the Prime Minister. The Dutch, the CoHo is the Dutch. The CFT is the Dutch Minister. Can you stop this condition? Explain to the people, because I feel people do not understand how it works.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you for the question, and I will respond to you. But before I do, Mr. Kantav did ask that I also weigh in, and you mentioned about the CFT, and this ties into that question, having to assess the conditions to see if we meet them before it can start. So these are one of the conditions that we had a challenge with, all three countries, and so we're checking to see if that is one of them that will be either rewarded or adjusted. This is one of the reasons I say it's very difficult when you're in a negotiation and the person is willing to readjust or discuss ways in which it can be interpreted or how they see it versus how we see it, that we publicize it, and then when it changes now or doesn't change, then there's a discussion again. So I prefer to have further discussions when I know what the final proposal is, because the State Secretary is committed to not just ensuring that the 12.5%, as per her own statements, is lifted, but the cut is lifted from our civil service as well as the public and semi-public entities, but that the conditions are executable. For us, the challenge was it's not executable in 3 weeks, but we found a solution to be able to still give the needed relief to our civil servants. So that urgency for June is no longer there. However, for us to get to the point of some of the other points, one of them is a law. This was mentioned in the public. The part about the 25% was mentioned in the public, as well as us funding it from our own budget was mentioned in the public. One of them is a law, and we know the trajectory of a law still has to go to Parliament. So that is still part of it in terms of starting to reduce the condition for the 12.5. And I can say that the understanding now, based on the way it was explained to us, and the members can confer because all of the council was in that meeting, is that it's not an immediate removal of 12%. It is a steady build down as per our availability of liquidity. So we are doing the necessary to be able to do it in steps, whereas it would have been done one time, based on the fact that we cannot currently afford to just remove 12.5% right away. But we can do, for instance, the 6%. Yeah? So we are still in deliberations, and we will do that. To further discussion, as per the question of Mr. Brown, the CFT has been in existence since St. Martin became a constituent state within the Kingdom of the Netherlands, meaning that as a result or as a condition to have a separate status, based on what was going on at the time, they agreed to financial supervision with this entity. And it has been evaluated. We have discussed it over and under if it is meeting the goals. This is still being discussed, and hopefully that can be done in the future as well. As it pertains to the CoHo, everyone knows how that came about. And again, who's in the kitchen feels the heat, and we expect to feel the heat. 2 years ago, everybody knows where we were financially after the lockdown, after the needed lockdown because of the health pandemic. The whole world stood still. It wasn't just St. Martin. It negatively impacted our economy, our income. So by December 2020, we were down to almost nothing, and we could not guarantee that we could even pay in January. So based on that, we accepted reluctantly, but we accepted the condition of the COHO, the 12.5%, and some other conditions. And the COHO was the trajectory to get there, because at the same instance, it's a legislation that requires Parliament to have their input. Yeah? Parliament has had their say in terms of the IPCO meeting and their reports, and so that is being deliberated. This is not a St. Martin imposed institution. We have concerns with it. They're being addressed. So I'm hoping that the people can understand that. We will continue to fight for the people of St. Martin. We are doing that daily. And though things take longer than we sometimes want, it is a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Unfortunately, members of the media, this does bring us to the end of the question and answer session, as we are due with time. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, June 1st, 2022. For rebroadcast, tune into St. Martin Gov Radio via 107.9 FM, Telem's Tel TV Plus, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, YouTube channel Government of St. Martin, and TV 15. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Rolika Roach, and wishing you a pleasant day further.